Forgiveness. Been talking about it this week, and just by way of review, I just want to give you some of the things that I talked about the last couple of days. Number one, I talked about take the initiative to forgive. That you and I are to take the steps that when we realize that our brother has something against us, that we are to take the steps to initiate the process of forgiveness. Yesterday, I talked about forgiving the debt. Because when you and I live in forgiveness, what we're doing is we're taking payments from that other person. We're taking it in bitterness, we're taking it in grudges, we're taking payments from them. And it may give us short-term relief, but we really only find long-term satisfaction through releasing the person of the debt in the ways in which they have harmed us. Today, I want to talk to you about the acceptance that God has asked you and I to have. That He wants us to practice acceptance. In Colossians chapter 3, verse 13, the Apostle Paul wrote this. He said, "Bear with one another, forgive each other, whoever has a complaint against anyone, just as the Lord forgave you, so also should you." Paul tells us, he says, whoever has a complaint against anyone. He doesn't qualify why we are to forgive or when we should forgive. He said, in every case, we should forgive. And then Paul adds on to here, he says, if you didn't get that, he said, the way I want you to forgive is just the way God has forgiven you. Aren't you glad that God didn't say to you, I'll forgive you when you deserve it? Aren't you glad that God didn't say to you, I'll forgive you if you promise never to do that again? I'm so glad in my life that God didn't say to me, I'll forgive you as long as you change. No, God said, I forgive you, period, end of sentence. And you see, that is the way in which Paul says we are to forgive one another, because this is what I know, is that we're all human. We're all going to fall again. We're all going to drop the ball. When I was in 5th grade, one of the things that we would do on the playground after school was play pickup football. And I remember there was a game that I was playing. It was near the end of recess, and the teacher was getting ready for us to go back inside to get ready to get on the bus to go home. And we were on offense. It was the last drive we were going to have. And my buddy, who was the quarterback, he told me, he says, you just run deep. I'm going to throw it as far as I can. So I ran deep. I got behind the defender. He threw the ball. And I still remember watching the ball come down through the sky, hit me in the hands, bounce out of my hands and onto the ground. And I was just devastated for a 5th grader. I mean, this was felt like the end of my life. And my friend came along and he put his arm around me and he said, it's okay. We all dropped the ball. And the very next day he picked me again to be on his team. And you see, that is a perfect illustration of the way in which God has asked you and I to forgive one another. Because you know what? I don't remember it, but I only assume that I've dropped the ball again in those games. But my friend still continued to pick me because he remembered that sometimes we all drop the ball. And so I want to encourage you today. Maybe you have forgiven somebody who has harmed you and you are afraid about what's going to happen again. Or maybe you know you need to forgive somebody. You've just been holding back because you're waiting for them to change. I want to encourage you today to release them from the debt and just practice acceptance. Because it's going to be good for your soul. It's going to help you to grow and become more and more like Jesus Christ.